Tesla is a peaceful company. We've never done anything harmful. I've never done anything harmful. I've only done productive things. So I think we just have a deranged, there's some kind of mental illness thing going on here, because this doesn't make any sense.
What you're about to hear about isn't just a mistake. It could be the beginning of the end for the most famous electric car company in the world. One police patrol in Manchester city centre stopped a car. Not a Bugatti, not a Ferrari, but a brand new Tesla Cybertruck, a symbol of progress, of audacity, of the future. In a few minutes, this electric pickup was already standing in the parking lot, and a wave of questions went through the streets of London. Was it something with documents or something more serious?
I mean, the things that he's doing is not trying to make America better. He's ruining our infrastructure, every department in our government he's ruining, and he's right now destroying our economy. He's taken away all of our allies. We're a pariah in the world.
It turned out to be much deeper than that. In the seconds that British police officers were writing down the chassis number, an entire business model collapsed. Tesla didn't just lose one car. It lost its reputation. It lost Europe's trust. It lost billions of dollars. And worst of all, it faced a global resistance that could no longer be ignored.
But they are not ruling out the possibility that this was arson. At the same time, as you just mentioned, there are groups that have been organizing ongoing and peaceful protests at Tesla dealerships around the world. These demonstrations targeting Elon Musk and his affiliation with the Trump administration. Also, Italy's prime minister is said to be close friends with Musk, and there were reports that Teslas have been vandalized in her hometown in Italy. Diane.
You thought the Cybertruck was a technological revolution. Europe saw it as a weapon, bulky, heavy, with aggressive design and sharp angles. A steel monster that, by all safety criteria, should not even appear on European streets. No chance of certification. Not a single workaround. It's simply outlawed in the UK. Now imagine, it's not just a concept, it's a product that Tesla has already invested billions in, and which could now be scrapped.
KTLA Samantha Cortese joins us live with more on the wave of vandalism in protest of Elon Musk and his role in Washington. Sam?
Hi, Sharon, Micah. The ATF and FBI are collaborating with federal, state, and local law enforcement to investigate acts of domestic terrorism surrounding Teslas.
But that's just the beginning. After Manchester, the domino effect hit all over Europe. Germany, France, the Netherlands, countries where Tesla was once the flagship of progress, began to turn away from local brands en masse. Pre-orders are being cancelled. Car dealerships are emptying out. Even fans who have been waiting for the Cybertruck since 2019 are starting to wonder, is this the brand we've been going after all along?
Hey, Diane, this investigation really just beginning, and one of the key elements will, of course, be the surveillance video. And investigators potentially have a lot of it to work with as they try to figure out what caused this fire. We know that surveillance footage has been turned over, including video from each of the cars, which could prove vital to understanding what happened here, because each vehicle has its own camera system that works even when the car is off. And 16 cars burned in this fire. And right now, investigators don't know what caused it.
Tesla's stock plunged $12 billion in just one day. And a chill has gone through the forums. Could it be that Elon Musk has crossed the very line beyond which it's no longer innovation, but technological arrogance? Today in this video, we will tell you the whole truth about why Tesla is no longer untouchable, why the Cybertruck has become not a symbol of the future, but a testament to a profound blindness to laws, culture, and common sense. You will learn how one police report turned into an international crisis, what decisions now lie before Elon Musk, and why not just the future of one model, but the fate of an entire company depends on them. Stay tuned. Ahead is the story of how a dream can turn into a nightmare.
That's from the European Automobile Manufacturers Association. People just choosing with their wallets to not buy Teslas because of that Musk-Trump association. And actually here in London, an activist group called Everyone Hates Elon actually have been hacking bus stop signs with posters. I actually passed one yesterday. First, I wasn't quite sure what was happening, but it said the words 0 to 1939 in 3 seconds. Illusion here, 0 to 60 in like 3 seconds or something. But this poster was alluding to the start of World War II, and the image was of Musk giving that hand salute that we saw at Trump's inauguration that many have attacked as a Nazi gesture. Musk, though, has neither admitted or denied what he was doing. But we're seeing the knock-on effect of that anti-Musk anger across Europe and in terms of sales.
At first glance, everything seemed random. A routine patrol in South Manchester, traffic control officers, routine vehicle checks. But this time, it wasn't a run-of-the-mill hatchback. On the roadside stood a matte, almost fantastical Tesla Cybertruck, a huge wedge-shaped silhouette, as if it had stepped off the pages of a science fiction novel. Its sharp angles and gleaming steel stood out against the backdrop of neat European cars, as if deliberately provoking. When the officers asked for documents and ran a VIN check, no one realized that this was the moment when a chain reaction was set in motion that could change the fate of an entire industry. An hour later, the Cybertruck was impounded, taken to a special parking lot in an industrial district and sealed. And 12 hours later, Tesla's name was already heard at an emergency meeting of the Transportation Safety Committee of the UK Parliament.
Worse than expected, 336 and 68 vehicles, 336,068 vehicles delivered in the first quarter for Tesla. For a point of reference, the street was expecting, the street account was expecting, based on analyst expectations.
The next day, London's morning newspapers ran headlines like Tesla outlawed, Cybertruck banned in the UK. The car of the future failed to make it to the present. What started out as a routine stopgap, in reality turned into a complete legal debacle. British regulators officially confirmed that the Cybertruck was not certified to meet British and European safety standards. And then, they started publishing details. The first is the complete absence of deformable zones. The rigid, cold-rolled stainless steel frame, designed to withstand impact, turned out to be deadly in collisions. While a conventional car is designed to crumple and absorb the force of impact, the Cybertruck transfers all the energy to the object of the collision. A pedestrian, a cyclist, a driver of a compact car. Any of them would have minimal chances in an accident with this car. The second thing is the sharp corners of the body. The inspector's report stated, at a certain angle of impact, the side panels can act as cutting edges.
Running around on stage with the Tesla stock price, where the stock price had gone in half. And he was overjoyed. What an evil thing to do. What a creep, what a jerk. Like who derives joy?
Next is the lack of physical connection between the steering wheel and the wheels. The so-called steer-by-wire system, where control comes only through a digital signal, was deemed a safety hazard. By law, in emergency situations, the steering must have a redundant mechanical linkage to avoid loss of control in the event of an electronic failure. Cybertruck did not have this. What's more, according to an independent test by engineers at the London Transport Agency, when the power was turned off while driving, the wheels locked in their current position with no possibility of manual adjustment.
371, most were saying 350 to 360. Now they're coming in at 336,068, production of 362,615. So for some point of reference here, you're going back to Q2, maybe Q1 of 2022 in terms of the last time that they had production this or deliveries this low for one quarter. So again, Tesla deliveries worse than expected at just over 336,000 deliveries in the first quarter. Guys, I'll send it back to you.
That's horrible. Can I just ask Phil, how about the Cybertruck? How's that doing? You got a little inventory there in the Cybertruck?
A separate criticism fell on the lighting system. Instead of separate turn signals, brake lights and parking lights, the Cybertruck has a single light bar stretching across the entire rear of the vehicle. According to a 2003 British law, signal lights must be clearly separated, placed at a certain height, and have a minimum distance between each other to be visually distinguishable in poor visibility conditions. Inspectors called Tesla's implementation optical chaos that makes it impossible to quickly read a driver's intentions in dense city traffic.
So there are a couple of things that might be going on here. So on the one hand, it could be that just at a very basic level, Musk has quickly observed a 40% decline in sales in Tesla in Europe.
But the main strike was the weight. In its base configuration, the Cybertruck weighed 3,100 pounds. the limit for personal vehicles with a Category B license. However, in the version with all-wheel drive and reinforced batteries, the weight exceeded 3,600 kg, which automatically transferred the car to the Category C1, for driving which in the UK requires a special permit. Thus, more than 90% of potential buyers were physically unable to drive this car without an additional license. The government called it a massive design flaw, and one MP even joked, "It's not a car, it's an electrically powered tank."
Well, you will hear people over in Europe say the new Model Y, the Juniper, could be a difference maker, but that's been in that market now for more than a month. And you would think that you would see a greater snapback if it's going to be a difference maker. Look, we could be wrong. It could be a difference maker once you get the sales for April, May, and June. But when you have a country like Norway, I think the sales were down something like 11% there. I mean, that's a very savvy EV consumer in Norway. And that's long been a strength for Tesla. Very small market, not huge volume, but I think almost all of the vehicles they sell there are electric. And they embraced Tesla long before others. And, you know, the reports there are not encouraging.
At this point, it became obvious that we're not just talking about a not, but the complete legal collapse of the entire model. The British authorities didn't just refuse to register it. They made it impossible to adapt the Cybertruck to their standards. The Emergency Act stated, "In view of the systemic irregularities and potential threat to road infrastructure, vehicles of this type are to be banned from import, operation and sale." For Tesla, this came as a shock. The company tried to initiate negotiations, offered to conduct adaptation tests, but the doors were closed. And that was only the first step.
Does that help Tesla? I mean, you had Tom Waltz, who's a huge jerk, right? You know.
Immediately after Manchester, a real information storm began. European regulators began synchronously reviewing their relations with Tesla. Transportation ministries in Germany and France held emergency consultations with independent experts. In Belgium, the Pedestrian Safety Association published a report in which they called the Cybertruck a threat higher than the SUVs of the early 2000s. In the Netherlands, the car was compared to an armored personnel carrier and demanded its immediate removal from the list of those allowed to be registered.
After Trump imposed those sweeping 25% tariffs on aluminum and steel imports, the European Union retaliating with tariffs on up to $28 billion of U.S. goods. Trump making it clear this isn't over, vowing to respond in kind with sweeping retaliatory tariffs early next month.
They're doing what they should be doing, perhaps, for the European Union, but it does create ill will. And as you know, we're going to be doing reciprocal tariffs. So whatever they charge us, we're charging them.
Canada also striking back with new tariffs on $20 billion worth of U.S. goods, mostly steel and aluminum, but also computers and sporting goods.
At the same time, closed discussions began in the European Commission's halls. Can such models be allowed to enter the EU at all? A proposal was voiced to introduce a new standard for electric cars with a mass exceeding 3,000 GA, where in addition to crash tests, the factor of threat to others will be taken into account. At the same time, a wave of protests began. In Hamburg, environmental activists blocked the entrance to the Tesla showroom by rolling out a wood frame on the sidewalk with a sign reading "Your Cybertruck is cutting the air, and us." In Paris, a car was attacked during the action. "Excess is not progress" was written on its body with paint. And in Amsterdam, unknown people disrupted the presentation by breaking the window of the exhibition hall where one of the early copies of Cybertruck was delivered. Interestingly, all this was accompanied by complete silence on Tesla's part. The press office remained silent. Elon Musk continued to publish ironic tweets, referring to freedom and independence. But a crisis began inside the company. One former employee at Tesla's European office, according to information provided anonymously, said, "We were warned that problems are possible but solvable. But no one expected that we would just be kicked out of the market." He said Tesla's internal analysts underestimated the European sensitivity on the topic of public safety and legal regulation. "American audacity. It doesn't work in Brussels," he added. Meanwhile, in the week following the Manchester incident, the share of visits to Tesla's European sites dropped 37%. According to analytics company EVscope, about 19% of users cancelled their pre-orders for the Cybertruck, and most alarmingly, interest in Tesla's other models has begun to wane. The Model 3, once sales hits in Scandinavia, were suddenly in the zone of doubt. All of this was just the beginning, and pointed to an underlying crisis that went far beyond a single car. Tesla wasn't losing product, it was losing trust.
And police in Italy are investigating possible arson after a fire destroyed more than a dozen Tesla vehicles. Elon Musk is calling the incident at a Rome dealership terrorism. This comes as Tesla has been the target of recent protests around the world.
Elon Musk has always liked to play on the edge. He built an empire on provocation, on challenging norms, on audacity that fans called genius. And for the first time, it seems to be that very edge that has cracked. After the British ban on Cybertruck and the precipitous collapse of trust in Europe, it was clear Tesla was no longer seen as progress, and Musk himself was no longer seen as a revolutionary, but as someone who had ignored all the signals. What was once his strength had become a weakness. He knew the Cybertruck didn't comply with the law, said so publicly back in 2020, promised to adapt the model to Europe, and didn't. But he continued to sell the car all over the world, repeating time and time again, "We don't customize, we set the rules." At Tesla's corporate meetings in late 2023, according to insider information, Musk bluntly told investors, "If Europe doesn't embrace the Cybertruck, then Europe is not ready for the future." The phrase was met with applause in California and fury in Berlin. What was once admired had come to sound like arrogance. The model that had promised to change everything was now a symbol of failure. But if it had been limited to cancelling pre-orders and plummeting stock, Tesla might have been able to hold on. The problem was deeper than that. There was a collapse in the cultural perception of the brand itself.
Outperforming as well in some cases, doing better than Tesla. And you just have to think, how much more is this a sustained issue for Tesla going forward, given the fact that you have Elon Musk, who's been very forthright in his opinions, particularly weighing in on politics, particularly in Europe. We've just had the European elections, which Musk has been very focused on. But across the piece, when you look at the performance for Tesla in Europe, it's not just in small countries. There are a lot of countries where Tesla has been performing badly, including in Germany, in the UK, where it has been lagging, and Spain as well.
The Cybertruck went from an object of admiration to a subject of ridicule and aggression in a matter of days. On Reddit and Twitter, there were tracks with photos of the car painted and covered with stickers "Back to Texas, you're not welcome here, steel doesn't save lives." In Copenhagen, unknown persons painted graffiti on one of the models in the form of a child's drawing with the caption, "Mummy, it's a scary car." In a parking lot in the center of Munich, 3 cases of deliberate damage to a Cybertruck were recorded during the day. In Strasbourg, activists installed a plywood cross with the inscription "RIP Safety" on the roof of one of the models. Crucially, this wave of outrage did not come from above, not from regulators, but from ordinary people, former customers, and even fans. One former Tesla Model S owner, French engineer Jean-Baptiste Leonard, posted an emotional video of himself ripping the logo off the hood of his car, saying, "I don't want to be part of this. It's not about technology anymore. It's about aggression, about ignoring the world." The video garnered more than 8 million views in 24 hours. Hundreds of similar videos began appearing on YouTube, TikTok, and Instagram. Reviews began to shift dramatically, from enthusiastic "Tesla will save the planet" to angry "Tesla is American arrogance on wheels."
Well, this feels more like a Tesla-only story when you look at just this fall in EV sales for them, that they're suffering across Europe, down 45% in January. The wider EV market in Europe up 37%, so rivals are catching up and performing.
There's been an equally dramatic shift in the US. In cities where Tesla was previously seen as a symbol of progressiveness, the backlash has now begun. In Portland and San Francisco, activists held a series of rallies against toxic innovation, with slogans like "Not on our streets" and "Technology without conscience is a threat." In Los Angeles, a group of eco-activists even blocked the exit of a Tesla service center, demanding recognition of a cultural mistake and a halt to Cybertruck sales. Reputational blows started coming from all sides, from a university professor calling for Tesla to be excluded from campus parking lots, to a famous actor refusing to be an ambassador, to a respected technology columnist who called Tesla a shadow of itself. But a particularly painful blow has been the behavior within the ownership community itself. Forums and private chats where they used to discuss software updates and autonomous driving suddenly became filled with criticism. The following topics appeared. Should I change Model 3 for Polestar? Tired of aggression, I'm going to Hyundai. Cybertruck is the end. And it wasn't just about aesthetics or laws. People started talking about values, about the fact that Tesla is no longer associated with responsibility. One of the former admins of Tesla Club Norway wrote in his Telegram channel, "We no longer feel that we belong to something bigger. We just became customers of a company that no longer listens." Meanwhile, a media campaign began. Financial Times, Le Monde, Frankfurter Allgemeine Zeitung, all major European publications devoted editorials to Tesla. But if earlier their style was analytical, now the articles were clearly reproachful. German Spiegel published an article titled "When Progress Becomes a Danger," where it was said in plain text that the Cybertruck represents not the evolution of transportation, but imported violence. Wall Street Journal analysts described the decline in interest in Tesla as a moral backlash. CNBC went further, comparing the situation to the collapse of Tyrannus, pointing to a cult of personality that has begun to rot from within.
Teslas are being torched across the country. Dealerships shot up and set on fire. Spray paint to vandalize and make a statement. People in Southern California are getting notes on their Teslas, calling them complicit Nazis for owning electric cars.
Everything culminated in a letter from the European Federation of Automobile Manufacturers, which directly questioned whether it was time to reconsider Tesla's status as a new player and move it to the category of companies whose activities require constant legal oversight. And it wasn't just a symbolic move. It would mean that every Tesla model in the future would be subject to rigorous bureaucratic scrutiny on par with new brands, losing the freedom on which Musk's business model was built. With each passing day, the Cybertruck became more and more not a product but a meme with real losses behind it. Loss of loyalty, loss of respect, losses of those who once followed Tesla as a symbol of the future. Now, even those who continue to believe in autonomous driving, artificial intelligence, and the transition to electric power have begun to wonder, is Tesla really leading us forward, or is it a road to a dead end? Tesla found itself in a position it wasn't prepared for. When a brand is bombarded not only by competitors and journalists, but also by your own fans, recovery becomes nearly impossible. Because it's no longer about whether Cybertruck is broken. It's about whether something is broken inside Tesla itself. And all of this was happening at a time when competitors weren't just ramping up sales. They were preparing to push Tesla off the front pages. Hyundai announced the release of its new Urban Mind EV lineup. Volkswagen will launch the Sigmax platform in 2025 to suit the European context. Even Ford, which has traditionally played on the American field, announced the start of production of 2 European models with a focus on EU regulations and pedestrian safety. Tesla, once a symbol of progress, was now lagging behind not because of technology, but because of the principle, we are not inferior. Thus, the decision facing Musk was no longer a business issue, it was an identity issue. Recognize that the one product for all philosophy no longer works, or continue to defend a strategy that doesn't work, at the risk of losing everything. Because if Tesla doesn't adapt, it will start to shrink. And with it, the very idea that one company can dictate the rules to the entire market will begin to shrink.